Hey everybody, welcome back. Thanks so much for joining me today on this rainy Thursday here in Georgia. So, um, tax bills came out this past week in Georgia, and a lot of people, myself included, had a little when we saw the bills. And so, we're definitely going to dive into that this week. I've had so many phone calls when it came to this topic because a lot of people had called me already when they got their tax bills. And then when they saw that I was going to be talking about this, they sent me emails. And so we're definitely going to dive in today. But I really want to tell you guys thanks for joining me. Tell me where you guys are joining from. I always love to hear in the chat where people are coming from. And then it's funny because when this is watched later, people will type in and say like where they've come from or shoot me an email where they're watching from. It's interesting because if you're not in Georgia, obviously tax laws, property taxes are different in every single state. And so this may not apply to you, but I appreciate you joining us nonetheless. If you're thinking about making a move to Georgia, this will be good information for you to know because it is going to be all on the property taxes and just kind of what that looks like overall. So to dive in, definitely drop a comment if you guys are tuning in and have any questions. I know I have some questions that I wrote down that people had emailed over and text over before, just so I make sure to cover those topics. But if you are tuning in or tune in later, definitely feel free to drop that in the chat. Or if you tune in late or watching this later on and you have questions, feel free to email me directly. I'm happy to make sure that you get all of the information that you need, just to kind of make sure that either it answers your question or if you have information that to work on your property taxes. I want to make sure that you get all of the information that can help. So diving into it, like I mentioned last week, a lot of people got their property tax bill. If you haven't already, you should be getting it anytime now. And property taxes here are directly correlated with your home value. The difference is some people get very confused because what the market value of the home is compared to what the county is saying that your home value is can be drastically different. And so I had somebody call me last week, or actually earlier this week, and we were kind of discussing what that looks like and why are the values of her home differently, because she said realistically what the county is valuing the home at and what she feels like she could sell for is a little bit different in the price. So when the county is looking at your property, they're looking at the land value, what the actual cost of the land is and what that value is, and then the structure that is currently on the property, on the land. So your home that was built on the land. So they kind of look at them as two different pieces and then they add those together to get a value. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Now, when you are looking at what you could sell the property for, that's something completely different, because if your home is valued by the county at, say, $300,000, but over the last 2 years, we've seen people that are willing to pay up and over that value. So that's market value, what the market is willing to pay. So if the home is appraised at 300,000, but I have somebody over here that's like, I don't care, I want the house, I'll give you 400,000, I will pay the difference, or I'll pay you $400,000 cash. Well, then that's market value. They're willing to pay up and over what the current actual value of the property is. So that's how we get the differences. In the last 2 years, we've had a lot of that happening. And so you have to be careful, because sometimes the county is going to up your taxes. Is it always fair? No, it's the government, y'all. Nothing is fair when that comes to the government. So if we kind of look, I wanted to show you this because they talked about Gwinnett County residents were shocked by the rise in property taxes. One resident said his home has gone up tremendously since he bought the property in 2016. In total, 133%. Y'all, 133%, that's ridiculous. So where it used to be an advantage to live in Gwinnett County because the property taxes are reasonable, this does not seem reasonable at all. So he was kind of saying that, a while back, 2016, he felt like one of the key points of living in Gwinnett County was the fact that it was very minimal to pay the taxes here. For Turner, he said his 3-bedroom home's rate increased by over $500 this year. About 76% of Gwinnett County residents can expect an increase in their property values. The difference is the result of changes in appraised property values, which are adjusted based on the market conditions. As property values go up, it's really a great thing for homeowners because what you're going to see is people getting more value for their property, and that's what you're looking for. However, my thing to this is kind of twofold, right? Because of the fact that, let's see here, the issue is going to be that the last couple of years, we had a significant increase in pricing. And so what that does when the county is looking at it is they say, okay, well, then your value increased. And so we're going to raise the taxes to go along with that. But if your next door neighbor sold their property kind of in the height of that market and somebody was willing to pay up and over what the appraised value is, well, then that's not a fair value. They're not looking at the fact that that property didn't appraise for that number. And so I always, always, always tell people to really pay attention to that. And if you see that a property sold for something it wasn't listed for that, then that needs to be noted. You need to keep a log of what properties were listed for and what they actually sold for, and keep a log of what the difference is. And so that's why sometimes when property taxes come out, I have a lot of clients that will reach out to me and say, hey, can you do an updated CMA for me? Because I don't feel that this is right. And where a lot of the problem came in is we had such an increase in value the last 2 years. Taxes can't really keep up because they're going from one extreme to the other. This is one of the biggest reasons that when I tell people, especially first-time home buyers, do not max out your budget. If you're being told that you can, buy a home at $500,000, don't buy at the top of your budget because taxes are going to increase year over year. It's inevitable. They're going to increase. The only time that taxes didn't increase was back in 2008 to like 2012 when everything tanked. But here's the kicker. The government didn't magically come down on taxes. The government's not going to like recall what they just did. So when they go up, they're not going to come back down most of the time. And so you have to really consider that. And if you look at this here, this is kind of why everything is happening, you guys. I wanted to share this with you. Georgia's population increased between July 2020 and July 2021, according to annual data from the Census Bureau, by almost 74,000 residents. So if you look here, a 6.1 increase since 2010, but lower than its 10% gain. So we've had a substantial amount of people move to the Peach State here. And that's also bringing in more tax information or more taxes because of the fact that people are willing to overpay for properties the last couple of years. And so you have to make sure that you're getting a CMA because here's the kicker. You can always appeal your tax bill. And so if it just came out, you have a very short window that you're able to appeal that because it has to be from the time that the taxes were sent out before you can appeal. And so you can go in and you can appeal those taxes. You can go online and do it. You can actually go into the county courthouse and do it. I always go online and if it gets accepted, so let's say that your home is currently being valued at $400,000, you feel like it should be valued at $350,000. You can actually go online and fill in somewhere, all of the information on there. And I'll actually pull that information up. Georgia property tax appeal. So right here for Gwinnett tax, you can actually go on and you can change and you can put this for different counties because it has to be for your specific county because every county is different. You have to go to your county's website and you can type in the information there to say, what you feel that the value should be, but you have to back that up with why you feel like that should be that. And so that's where reaching out to me or keeping a log of it is really important, because you have to say why you feel like that information should be that way. The information should be pertinent to where you are currently at. So don't just use Gwinnett County as a whole. It needs to be per your neighborhood or per your um, in a couple mile district. So always feel free to reach out to me and say, hey, can you just give me an updated CMA so I can appeal these taxes? Because like the girl that I was telling you about, her taxes, kicker, 3 years ago, she called me and said, oh my God, my taxes were raised. I said, appeal it, appeal it. So she did, it stuck. And when you appeal the taxes, if they accept it, which a lot of times they will accept when you appeal, hers, it stays for 3 years. So hers stayed that same rate for 3 years. Now, after 3 years, it can then adjust. So you have to either appeal it again or accept the fact that they went up. So hers went up this year because that 3-year period is up. It went up $1,500. $1,500. That is a gross amount that is going to change her monthly payment. And so going back to, again, you cannot go and max out what you think you can afford, because if your taxes change, it's going to change your monthly payment, because most of us, unless you own a house outright in cash, then you pay your taxes in a lump sum each year. Most of us do not own our homes in cash. Most of us have mortgages. And so each month, part of what you're paying in that mortgage is an escrow payment. Your escrow is paid in arrears, which means you are paying for what you paid for or what they estimated your taxes to be last year. So come the end of the year, let's say that your taxes went up. Now you weren't paying enough in your escrow account. Now they're going to change your monthly payment and say, you still owe us $1,500 that you didn't pay last year. And so now your monthly payment is going to go up $12, $50, $200 to compensate for that. And so now you're going to have to up your payments each month to make sure that you're paying us back for that $1,500 that you never paid us last year. Well, if you're maxed out at your budget and you're already paying $2,000 a month, and now your payment goes up to $2,200 a month, $200 a month is a pretty substantial difference in somebody's payment when they are on a budget. And so if you were maxed out at $2,000 and now it's gone up an additional $200 and you don't have that in the budget, you're screwed. So my advice to you is to always make sure you have flexibility in your budget. Do not max out your budget at the top of, if they're telling you 500,000, go in a little bit lower. If they're telling you 600,000, go in a little bit lower. You have to have room for taxes to change. Most of us are going to be paying taxes, property taxes, until we're 65, because at 65, your property taxes significantly decrease in most counties anyways. Jackson County is one. Surprisingly, their taxes, you would think because they're a little bit further out, they're a little bit more in the country, that they would be a little bit less, because like Hall County, Forsyth County, their taxes are a little bit lower than Gwinnett County. However, in Jackson, that's not the case. So make sure you're paying attention, because every county is different. Let me see if I can pull that up actually. Every county is different though. You have to really pay attention to that. Let's see if I can pull up county taxes in Georgia, because I want to make sure that we share that. Because like Fulton County is the highest county, highest taxes in all of the different counties. So you have to really pay attention to those things. It's not going to give me a breakdown. I was hoping it was going to give me a breakdown. I was going to share that with you guys. But if you have questions on your specific taxes or your specific county taxes, email me, call me, text me. I'm happy to share all of that with you, because the fact of the matter is you can appeal. So this year, I have a feeling that a lot of people are going to appeal. Why are you going to appeal? Well, number one, because you can. I am all for appealing. I don't care if I feel like my taxes went up or not. I hate to get political here, and everybody has their own opinion. And so if yours is different than mine, that's okay. But I feel like the government taxes me on absolutely everything that they possibly can. You tax me on my income. Now you're taxing me on my property. You're going to tax me when I buy a shirt. You're going to tax me when I go eat. So if I can appeal my taxes and get like 1 penny back from you, I'm going to, just because I can. And so I always feel like you should appeal your taxes. Just to try and see, will they give you $1 back? Other than that, my big thing for this year is I feel like a lot of the taxes are going off of the assessments of the last couple of years. Well, we're not in the last couple of years. No, prices have not decreased significantly, but they have leveled out in many cases. And we had a lot of opportunities the past couple of years where people were paying up and over what the actual value of the property actually was. So, are you paying what your property should actually be worth, or are you paying what your next door neighbor overpaid for the property? And the only way for us to really look at that and get a good idea is to get a CMA and look at that. You can call me, you can shoot me a screenshot of your taxes and say, hey, this is what they're valuing my property at. Is this right? I'm happy to look at that for you and tell you. Because sometimes they're overvaluing the property, and therefore you're paying taxes on a value that's not really there. If you're paying an additional, amount of 30,000, or they're valuing your property $30,000 over what the actual value should be, that's a huge increase that you're paying on these taxes. And so why not try and appeal that? So you go online, you tell them you can attach the CMA, you can attach other comps that sold in the neighborhood. If a property recently has sold for significantly less than properties did last year, you can put that in there. So if there's anything that you can put in there for information to help support your argument, you put that in. And that's where, again, I'm happy to help with that. But a lot of people can go ahead and just kind of look at what values around you have done. And you can put in there the fact that, hey, we're not where we were last year. We're not selling for, $100,000 over. I feel like you've overassessed my home, and I feel like you should reduce the price to this amount. And then, because there's actually a little space where you can say, they'll ask you, what do you feel that the value of your home is worth? And so that's where you have to put in an actual value amount of what you think that the property's worth. Andreas, hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm glad to see you. Anthony, got a question here. Hey, Ashley, do you know how the millage rate is determined? I feel like the millage rate has increased a lot over the past couple of years, which seems to drive a higher amount of school taxes. So that's tricky because it's different in each county. School taxes are based off of that millage rate. So it's different for each one. I can shoot you, Anthony, I'll shoot you the information on Gwinnett because I know that's where you currently live. So like in Forsyth and Hall, it's a little bit less. And to be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure how they determine the exact rate. I know it is based off of the amount of students that they have coming into the schools. And that's why a lot of the schools try to get funding, because when they have more students coming in, they really go off of those test scores, and they're trying to get funding from the state based off of those test scores, because the higher test scores they get, the more funding they can get, because that's fair and makes absolute sense, right? Don't even get me started on that tangent. But so that being said, when you're looking at the millage rate, it's determined kind of by the number of people that are coming in, the number of students that are coming into the schools. But the great thing is when you turn 65, in most counties, you stop having to pay for those school taxes, which literally, a lot of people don't realize this. Your taxes per year, about half of those taxes are school taxes. So when you turn 65, or somebody turns 65, and they go ahead and get that senior exemption, because all of us are, I shouldn't say all of us, on your main property. If you have investment properties, you're not able to claim homestead. On your main property, you can get homestead exemption. However, while this is a great tax exemption to have, it usually does not change it significantly. It usually is going to take, maybe $700 to $800 off. If you're paying higher property taxes, it may take off, $1,000. But this tax exemption, homestead exemption, is not going to take off like a ton of money. Anything is better than nothing, obviously. So I would always, always, always tell people, if you own the property, the year that you own it, January 1 going forward. So like if you bought your property in August of last year, you're not going to be able to claim it for 2022, but you can file homestead between January 1 and April for 2023. And then you would get that homestead exemption. So make sure that you're doing that if you haven't already. And that does roll over year after year. So it's not something that you have to do every year, but make sure, if you're not sure if you've claimed homestead, go into the tax assessor site, look and see if you've claimed it. And then if you haven't, by God, make sure that you're doing that right away. And if you've missed it for this year, make sure you're doing it next year. But so when you turn 65, your tax bill literally gets cut in half. You're going from paying like $4,000 a year to like $1,500 a year. School taxes are significant amount of your property tax bill. So the funny thing is, and I won't say it's funny, I think it's a little bit frustrating right now. A trend that I'm seeing, and you guys are going to see this as well, and I'm interested to see over the long term what this is going to look like on our taxes. A lot of people that moved here are living in multi-generational homes. What do I mean by that? So let's say that I have a home and I've moved my parents into the basement, or my parents own the home and they're allowing me and my family to live in the basement because they have an in-law suite. A lot of people, you will see this being done where there's an in-law suite in the basement. And so they have parents living there. Well, trick is, have the parents buy the property. We're paying the note, but the parents are 65 or older. They bought the property in their name, so now they're not having to pay taxes on that. Well, that kind of messes with the taxes because it's not showing that I live there and my kids are attending these public schools and my kids are riding these public school buses, but I'm not having to pay the county's school taxes because I kind of found a loophole of going through my parents. So what is this going to do long term? What a lot of people are doing multi-generational properties now, just because we're just seeing that kind of trend in these bigger homes. Why not have multi-generational properties where the parents live in the basement? They're able to help with the kids. They're able to get the kids off the bus while you're working, because 50 years ago, a lot of wives stayed home and we don't see that anymore. So we are seeing a lot of the parents that are moving in and they're able to get the kids off the bus. And so I'm really interested to see long term, if we see this continuing to happen and we see more and more people that are able to kind of find that loophole, what is that going to do to taxes? Are we going to see tax increases in school taxes because not as many taxes are being paid? I don't know what it's going to look like. I've had this discussion with multiple people. I personally feel like it will continue, or that we will see a rate increase because of that. Because if less people are paying taxes, but more people are actively using the public school systems, their only way to make that money back is to raise taxes. And so it will definitely be interesting to see. Hey, Attack, good to see you guys. Always appreciate y'all tuning in. So obviously, I dove in headfirst with this. I feel like I've answered a lot of the questions that people had throughout the week this week. What are some of the questions that you guys have when it comes to your taxes or how it works, or even, filing the homestead exemption, or just filing, to have them brought back down? I know I was talking Tori, her name Tori is the girl that I was talking about, and she and I were kind of going back and forth because she was like, I'm not expecting it not to go up at all. I filed for them to come back down a couple of years ago. It stayed for 3 years because they accepted it, and now it's gone up. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have gone up at all, but $1,500 is pretty significant. And so I told her, I said, obviously every year your taxes usually increase. Look at what they would have increased to 3 years ago when you filed that, and say that amount. Say that that's what you feel that they're are valued at. And then I did prepare a CMA for her. I sent it over to her, and she actually attached that CMA to the appeal that she's submitting over to the county. She lives in Gwinnett County, and unfortunately, Gwinnett County, it's a double-edged sword because Gwinnett County was one of the places last year and in 2021 that many people moved to. Gwinnett County alone from 2020 to 2021, we saw an increase of 10,000 people to the county in 1 year. So that really helps us in a lot of ways as far as people moving in, spending more money. However, it does hurt us in the form of infrastructure. It hurts us in our schools because I don't feel like they were really ready for that. So I know that the county has come together. They were having a meeting about building more school opportunities just because some of the classes have been overrun. And I know that that's been a concern for some of the parents. And so they are looking at what needs to be done to bring the county to where it needs to be for the people that are moving in, because it's looking like this is going to continue to be a trend, because Gwinnett County is actually one of the main counties in Georgia that, if you look at predictions, is looking like predictions are saying that we're just going to continue to see an increase of people moving here because of the great schools and because of job opportunities here in Georgia. So there's a lot Georgia has going for it. But we need to make sure from, a government standpoint that we're following in suit. We're building those schools, we're building the infrastructure, we're building neighborhoods, because that's another problem that we found right now is inventory is still lacking, which is what is keeping home prices high for us. In some areas of the country, they're able to appeal their taxes and say, hey, our values have actually come down 10% since last year, 5% since last year. Georgia's not really able to say that. We actually went up 1.8% last month, which that's not a significant amount, 1.8%, but it's still going, it's trending north, not south. So we're not able to really say, hey, our values have gone down. We are able to say that last year and the year before, it was, I don't want to say falsely inflated, but kind of, everything with the pandemic happening and then a lot of people coming in from other states, we were seeing people that were overpaying with houses, waiving those appraisal contingencies. And so that kind of falsely inflated the market, because realistically, would somebody pay $400,000 for a home that's appraised at $300,000 today? I don't think that they would. Right now, we are still seeing multiple offers, but we are not necessarily seeing all of the waiving of contingencies, the waiving appraisal, waiving finance, waiving inspection. We're still actively seeing those contingencies stay in place. So that's something that's very different. While we are seeing multiple offers, it's not 10 to 20 offers. It's not $100,000 over what the asking price was last year. So it is a very different market than it was last year. So I don't want to keep harping on this. I know that everybody has things to get to. I just really wanted to jump on today, dive into this information, because I feel like it's really important. I feel like everybody should go on and appeal their taxes, because that's the only way. The more of us that go in and appeal and say like, hey, the values that you're looking at just aren't there. I feel like the more of us that do that and tell the government, like, this is not where the value is, bring it back into a realistic level, the more that they're going to have to really look at that and consider doing appeals for the masses. So I encourage everybody to go in and appeal. I will go ahead and put in the links down below for the different counties. So if your county's not in there and you have information, reach out to me. If you have questions that I didn't cover, reach out to me. My email information is below. And I look forward to seeing all of you guys next week. See you then.